At this hour, U.S. President Barack Obama's national security team has just briefed U.S. lawmakers on intelligence it says confirms the Syrian government carried out last week's alleged chemical weapons attack. The White House is facing some opposition to a potential military strike against Syria, and congressional leaders have called for a vote ahead of any military action. The White House is also vowing to release a public intelligence assessment in a bid to sway doubts. Nathan King joins us live now from the White House with the very latest. Nathan.
Yes, Elaine, the White House under pressure from every quarter, with allies like the United Kingdom balking from joining military action, Congress asking for a vote, and even unnamed members of his administration being quoted in the press to use a basketball term that the intelligence gathered last week from the alleged chemical weapons site is not a slam dunk.
So let me talk about what's at stake here.
The U.S. president says he's convinced that the intelligence points the finger squarely at Damascus, but unnamed officials in his administration have been questioning that assessment in media reports.
We have talked frequently here about biological weapons.
The question over intelligence echoes 2003, when then U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell waved a vial of simulated anthrax powder at the United Nations in a bid to convince a skeptical world that Iraq possessed stockpiles of biological agents and other weapons of mass destruction. The White House rejects that comparison.
I don't agree that these are similar situations. I think that there are some very important differences. What we saw in that circumstance was an administration that was searching high and low to produce evidence to justify a military invasion.
The White House says, unlike during the lead up to the Iraq War, the evidence this time is plain to see. In the internet video, in the testimony from doctors at the scene, from patients treated. They're also promising a public intelligence assessment before taking any action. Congress were briefed with classified intelligence on a conference call with senior Obama administration officials Thursday evening. However, some senior members of Congress are calling for a vote before military action is taken.
I do think we'd be so much better off if the administration would come to Congress, call everybody back, and let Congress authorize this activity.
The Obama administration also maintains that any strike on Syria will be limited, not an open-ended invasion. But if the strikes do go ahead, the parallels with the previous presidency will become more and more tempting.
And it will be a real irony if President Obama looks a little bit like George Bush by engaging in a limited military strike in Syria, and therefore drawing the United States even deeper into another Middle East conflict.
And the White House has said that it may not wait for the UN inspectors' findings when they return over the weekend, saying they won't be swayed by their evidence. And with more and more allies saying that they require a strong vote in the United Nations Security Council to join with the US militarily, if the White House wants to act soon, they may have to do it alone. Elaine?
Well, Nathan, pretty bad timing here. You have the G20 summit in St. Petersburg next weekend, followed in 3 weeks by the UN General Assembly in New York. How might these events affect the U.S. decision?
Yeah, it's almost inconceivable, isn't it, that you'd have the U.S. military bombing Syria while President Obama was in Russia. Remember, he's already cancelled a face-to-face with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, in Moscow. So to be in St. Petersburg with the heads of state of 20 other countries while you're acting alone would seem a little embarrassing for your hosts and difficult for you. And then exactly, you don't want to be at the UN General Assembly where everyone tries to talk peace while you're waging war. So it's going to be a difficult timing for President Obama. And I can tell you just now, Congress are starting to come out of that briefing and are saying they're not convinced either. So he's got some work to do at home as well as abroad.
All right, Nathan King live near the White House. Thanks.